Story time about how a strange man abused me because I didn't want to give him my phone number. Disclaimers are not my story time, send me on Instagram. I'm a 34-year-old mother of 2. I'm also a single mom, but I do own my own bakery. Most days I work from home, but I do go to the bakery every single day to open and close. I usually have about 4 employees at the bakery at once because we get really busy. On this occasion, one of my workers called out sick, so I decided to step in for her. I dropped my kids off at school and then I went straight to the bakery. Let me just fill you guys in on what I was wearing. I had on a matching set of activewear, so blue leggings and a blue top, which covered my stomach. In other words, I wasn't showing a lot of skin. When I get to the bakery, I see a man sitting in the corner. He had purchased his food and he was eating. I had a quick chat with all my employees asking them how the day was going, and they told me that the man had kept staring at them the entire time. And I look at the guy and sure enough, he is staring at all of us. I asked them to just ignore him. But this was a huge mistake. After a few minutes, the man came back up to the counter. He asked me for a sandwich and I gave it to him. He paid and went back to sit down, but then kept staring at me the entire time. And at my other female employees. Part 2 is up. Story time about how a strange man abused me because I didn't want to give him my phone number. Disclaimer is not my story time, send me on Instagram. The guy just kept staring at me and my employees. After a bit, I asked him if he was okay and if he wanted something else. Obviously, he said no and just kept sitting at the table. But again, he kept staring at my employees and at me. This obviously made us uncomfortable, so I decided to do something about it. I decided that the best thing would be to just close the store. I go to the man and tell him that we were going to close and if he needed anything else to buy it now. Then he says, actually, I would like to talk to you. And I said, sure, what's up? Honestly, I thought he was going to ask for a job, but no. He starts complimenting my hair, my body, and told me that I was too beautiful to be working there. That's when I told him that I was actually the owner of the bakery. And he says, wow, that's even more impressive. Let me describe this man. He was actually okay looking, mid-20s, and dressed pretty well. He just looked like a normal guy. Then he asked me to sit down at the table. I said no. That's when he told me that he'd been coming to my bakery for a week and that he'd been watching me. Then he grabbed my hand and pulled me down to sit next to him. Then he proceeds to put his hand on my lap. Creepy. Part 3 is up. Story time about how a strange man abused me because I did not want to give him my phone number. Disclaimer is not my story time, send me on Instagram. That's when he slid his hand onto my lap. I quickly get up from the table and ask him to leave. That's when he said, why are you freaking out? I'm just trying to get your number. Then I told him that there was absolutely 0 chance I would ever give him my phone number. And he said, oh, you think you have a choice? And he holds out his phone so that I could type in my number. I pushed his phone back and again asked him to leave. He threatened me and said that he wouldn't leave until I gave him my number. My knees and hands were shaking. Look back at my employees behind the counter and they are scared. That's when one of my employees says, I'm gonna call the cops. And I said, yes, call them. As soon as I turned back to this man, he swings at me. He wasn't able to reach my face, but then he grabbed me by the shoulders and pushed me down onto the ground. This all happened in about 30 seconds. As I'm on the ground, he starts slapping me. I covered my face with my arms and I just started kicking at him. And my 2 female employees, who by the way are like 17 and 18, start attacking the guy. And then he starts hitting them. Thankfully, 2 men from the street hear me yelling. I came in and tackled him and the police arrived 2 minutes later. I found out this guy was stalking me for a month. I got a restraining order.
Am I wrong for going off my husband and his mom for taking/keeping my used pregnancy test? I, female 24, found out I was pregnant very recently. My husband, male 34, and his family are beyond happy and excited. From what I heard, my husband was married 2 times before but couldn't have kids for 10 years. This is obviously a huge deal for his family because his mom will be a first-time grandma with this baby. They threw a celebration dinner for us, and as his mom and I were talking about the baby, she told me about how she already started making memories and started having keepsakes for her grandbaby. I felt a bit confused and asked if my husband bought something for the baby and gave it to her. She said no, but he did bring her my used pregnancy test and gave it to her to store as a memory. She said no, but he did bring her my used pregnancy test and gave it to her to store as a memory of the news of her grandbaby's existence. I was floored. I looked at my husband like, did you really do that? And he nodded while smiling. Not gonna lie, I felt creeped out, disgusted, and very uncomfortable. After the initial shock, I just went off on both of them, calling what they did creepy and disgusting and highly violating. My husband argued that it was not a huge deal and he just grabbed the test once I got rid of it and put it in a plastic bag and gifted it to his mom as a keepsake. I told him it made me feel violated and creeped out because that test had my literal pee on it. His mom then said something about taking care of the smell, and I lashed out even more and demanded to get rid of it, but they kept arguing, calling me controlling. You know, shocker, another keepsake, you can get her an ultrasound test and give one to her, say, here, this is for you. You don't gotta keep her pee stick. Brother-in-law asked me to calm down, but I decided to just grab my stuff and go home. My husband started arguing about how this is all just an overreaction and said that I ruined his and his family's joy by how I behaved after finding out about the pregnancy test. He said for him and his mom, it's all about the baby, but I somehow made this whole thing about me and hurt their feelings in the process. But that was my literal pee on that test, and I just couldn't help but flip out even if it ruined their joy for the news. So did I overreact?
Story time. Everybody's saying that I cheated on my ex-boyfriend, but I want your guys' opinion. So a little background information. I was a college student, and I had been with this guy who we're going to call Jacob for about 6 months. Towards the end of his and I's relationship, stuff just started to get really boring, and every day I would get the ick from him. Now, at this time also, I had gotten a new job. While I was working, I had met this guy who we're going to call Tim. Since I was a college student, I decided to start working more, so Tim and I would see each other literally every day. Him and I really hit it off, like straight away. Not to mention, him and I had a lot of things in common, his sense of humor was great. Well, the one night before work got out, Tim asked for my number, and I said yes. However, since I was still with Jacob, I decided that I was going to break up with him before I texted Tim. So I broke up with him. Fast forward to now, Tim and I are in a super good relationship. But now everyone's saying that I cheated on Jacob. What do you guys think?
I'm a 21 female college student. My dad's stepdaughter is 18, turning 19 soon and expecting a baby. She has no idea who the father is, and she's been left behind by her friends who are all in college after graduating last year. She never went and stayed living with my dad and her mom. Now she's pregnant, doesn't have a job, and isn't in school, but she's planning to go now, which I don't know. I don't believe that, but I know my dad wants to. I transferred and I now live about an hour away from my dad. Because I'm so much closer now, he wants me to help out his stepdaughter, give her a place to stay some nights so that she can get away from her house and maybe be a sister to her, offer to be an aunt to her baby. She and I have never gotten along, and I personally think she's a spoiled brat, and I don't consider her family, even though by marriage she is. But we never treated each other like sisters and have never counted on each other as such. She regrets that now. She told me as much. She realizes that I have people in my life who will be there for me in a heartbeat, which she doesn't have outside of her mom and my dad. I told my dad that I wasn't interested, that I'm happy where my life is at, and I don't trust her to follow through, nor do I care enough about her to reach out. It's the honest truth. I don't care if she tries or not. She's not important to me. It upset him because he wants more for her, and he wants me to want this so badly. However, she wasn't part of my life for as long as she was in his. I was 15 when I moved in with him after my mom died, and before that I saw him a few weeks out of the year. My dad was upset but not angry. His wife, however, thinks I'm a bad egg, to quote her, which gave me pause. She said family helps each other. Wouldn't I want her to help me? The answer to that is no, because I've seen where her help leads to. Then she talks about how her baby is special and important and I should cherish her. She told me that only bad eggs refuse to help. I might be wrong now, but I consider her that way of calling me, and I only entertain that because my dad is hurt.
The time I almost died. I was playing in the backyard with my friend at the time, and she came up with the idea to climb on top of the house. So when we got to the roof, she dared me to jump off the roof into the car. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. Then she started teasing me and said that I was a scaredy cat. I was 9 at the time, and the one thing I hated to be called was scary. So I took it as a challenge. So like a crazy person, I decided to go for it. So I jumped off the roof and landed on the edge of the car, and I ended up rolling off the car onto the ground. I ended up breaking my leg in 2 places. But the craziest part is I was inches away from missing the car and landing straight on the ground. I could have literally died.